So today's video is about answering the question, do we need to fork out big amounts of money to buy a big expensive set of pencils, or is it enough to buy a cheap small set of Crayola pencils? And how many colors can we actually get out of this set of 12? Hi, I'm Sarah Renee Clark, and it's my goal to help you get more creative in your everyday life. Now, please, before we jump into this video, like it below, press subscribe and turn on notifications so that you get notified every time I create a new video like this. So today I have picked up a set of 12 Crayola coloring pencils. They are cheap, but they are still good quality, and I wanted to see how they fared against my expensive set of Prismacolors. Now, I know many of you are in the same boat that I was when I started, where you don't want to fork out hundreds of dollars for some of these expensive pencils. Well, today, I wanted to put them to the test. I wanted to find out just how different the Crayolas fared against the Prismacolors. I also wanted to show you exactly how you can create a huge range of colors out of a set of 12 pencils. And before we start, if you'd like to try this for yourself, I've included a free download on my website where you can get this color mixing chart and color mixing test sheet for free. So check out that link in the description. So in filling this page out, the first thing I've done is put down a light layer of my dominant colors. Now, our dominant color is going to be stronger in the final result than our mixing color, because it is the first layer of pigment on the paper which generally makes it stronger. And in this example, I'll also be doing an extra layer at the end so that we end up with 2 layers of the dominant color and only 1 layer of the mixing color. This will mean that our resulting color is more towards the dominant color. So this is how red and yellow can make a variety of oranges. You see, when red is the dominant color and yellow is the mixing color, the result will be a darker orange because it has more red in it. Whereas if we switch those colors around, the same 2 colors, and use yellow as the dominant color and red as the mixing color, because there is more yellow and there are more layers of yellow, the resulting orange will be a lighter orange, more similar to a yellow. If you're wanting to create an even bigger range of colors than just what's on this page, you can vary these amounts and try doing more or less of your dominant and your mixing color to create a whole variety of oranges between that red and yellow. You'll see this in action as we start to fill in the light layers of our mixing color. Now, as I'm doing this, you'll probably also notice that some of these colors are coming out quite a muddy gray. For example, green and pink really don't seem to make a nice color when we mix them together. That's because colors on the opposite side of the color wheel make gray when mixed together. So if you remember back to my color theory video, you'll know that we call these complementary colors. And while they look great side by side, like the red and green you see at Christmas, they look terrible when mixed together. Every time you mix 2 complementary colors, you will get a gray color. I'll explain more about why this happens and how to avoid it in a future video, but to keep this simple, just remember that similar colors make for better mixes, which we can see by looking at our chart. As we finish making all these blends, our 12 colors have become 144. And if we try this again with different quantities of each layer, like we talked about at the start, we could stretch this number further. But that's still nowhere near 1,000, so where do the rest of the colors come from? We can bring in more colors by mixing 3 colors together instead of 2. So I've made a copy of my color mixing chart and I'm going over the whole thing with a light layer of sky blue. As you can see, the difference is minor, but the additional color is creating even more variety. Now imagine recreating this with all 12 pencils and you've got over 1,000 different colors. We probably shouldn't be surprised by this. After all, our printers can print almost any color that exists and it only uses 4 colors: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, or CMYK. But it definitely helps to have more than just those 4, unless you can put down your pencil layers and blend in colors with the accuracy of a computer. So before we move on, I do want to compare these Crayola pencils to the Prismacolor pencils, because while we can create any color with the 12 pencils, the blending and their ability to actually work well on the paper just does not compare to the expensive pencils. So if you look closely at the Crayola swatches, you can still see many of the original colors in each mix. There's a strong texture and it's not very smooth. You can improve this with lighter layers and using different blending solutions, but it can never quite compare to the better quality pencil. So let's compare this to the Prismacolors that I have used to do the same thing. So I have chosen the basic 12 colours that Prismacolor offer in a set, although I had to replace 2 of the browns because I couldn't find my correct browns in my own collection today. I'm a little disappointed that Prismacolor doesn't offer a pink or magenta in their set of 12, because this is one of the main colours that we use to mix other colours, and it's hard to create a good pink with what we've got in this set of 12. But otherwise, as you can see overall, the Prismacolors are far superior to the Crayolas. They are easier to work with. In fact, I've actually done this page in half the time and kind of rushed it a little bit. They blend more easily and the colours are more vibrant. The white pencil actually does something, unlike the white Crayola that didn't really seem to do anything. So if you're only going to buy a set of 12 pencils, I would highly recommend stretching your budget for a good quality set like this. So let's take a step back for a moment and go back to mixing our 3 colours together. Now, I showed you before how when we add a third colour, it brings in a whole range of new colours, but I wanted to show you this a bit more specifically, looking at some of the colours that you'll probably find yourself wanting to use that are outside that set of 12. So probably the most common colour that is missing from this set that you'll want to use is a skin tone. Now, obviously there are so many different skin tones, so there's going to be different colour mixes in all of them. So what I'm going to try and do is create at least something close that we can use as a basis, and then you can add and remove colours accordingly. So we're going to use my colour mixing test chart, which is also included in that free download that I'll pop in the description below. And for a base colour, I think most skin tones will include an element of brown, yellow, pink, and probably some white. There are definitely ways that you can mix skin colours, including a bit of blue and red as well, but I'm trying to keep this really simple. So this may just involve a bit of experimenting on your own. Now, if we look at our Prismacolors, in fact, let's pull the Crayolas as well, just for comparison. As you can see, we do have quite a few browns here, but pretty much nothing in the browns, the pinks, or the yellows really looks like a decent skin tone. Whereas on our Prismacolor range, we do have, especially because they've got the 2 browns in their set of 12, as opposed to just the 1, we do have a few more colors here that have the potential to be a bit closer to some skin tones. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these colors and we're gonna see if we can adjust them by adding a third color. And I'm gonna be a little bit sneaky and I'm gonna take the pink from the Crayola set, because if Prismacolor aren't gonna give us a pink in their set of 12, there's no reason that we can't steal a pink from a different set. And since I've got the Crayolas here and they're nice and cheap, that seems logical. The alternative would be to get yourself a slightly bigger set of Prismacolors. Maybe there's a set that's like a 20 or 30 set. I think that would probably be the way that I would recommend to go, but we're just gonna see for the sake of today how we go with this. So let's start first with this burnt ochre color. Now this one, remember, is burnt ochre and white. And we have the very similar one here, which had the white as the dominant color, but I'm going to use the burnt ochre as the dominant color just because it was a bit easier not putting the white down first. That kind of was a little bit hard to work with. So we'll start with a layer of burnt ochre. Then I'm actually gonna come and bring in the pink. Now, being a cheap pencil, I'm not sure how we're gonna go with this, but let's just give it a shot. So very lightly. In fact, when you're using cheaper pencils, go as light as you can. And then we will come over with our white at the end. Now look, I think that's all right. I think we can do better. So we're gonna try the same thing, but we're actually gonna add a fourth color. We are going to add a yellow as well. So let's just repeat the same thing so that we can see the difference. I'm gonna go darker at this side just so we can compare the difference here. And then we'll come in with our pink again. Don't want to add too much pink or you're gonna look sunburnt. All right, so this one used the brown, the pink, and the yellow, and the white. And it's looking a little bit better, but I do feel like this just isn't quite the same as what you can get with a proper skin colored pencil, but it's definitely something to work with. In fact, if we then bring in our light umber as well, we might be able to change the tone a little bit further. The point is to just try. And remember to do light layers, because the lighter you work, the more control you'll have and the more colors you'll be able to add without darkening it too much. So another color that we can create is black. Now I know you're thinking we already have a black, but as you'll find, using black in a picture can be really, really strong. So sometimes it's better to create our own black using other colors that isn't quite as intense. So if we look on our sheet, you can actually already see a little bit of blacks showing up through some of these mixes. And just like we talked about with our color wheel, when we mix colors on the opposite side and they become gray, as we make that darker, we get a black. So let me show you a few examples. So the brown and the blue actually make quite a good black together, and that works firstly because they're both already fairly dark colors, but also because they live on opposite sides of the color wheel. So when we mix them together, we get a gray, and as we get darker, we get a black. And it's a much more, I guess, gentle black than just using a black pencil. So in the same way, red and green are complementary colors on the opposite side of the wheel, and when we mix them together, we get something like a dark gray or a black. So finally, I wanted to show you how to match your colors to a color palette. So I have chosen this color palette from the color catalog, and I have printed myself out a copy. Now I'm going to try recreating each of these colors with the Crayolas and then with the Prismacolors. And I'm already realizing that I've probably shot myself in the foot here, because this purple is probably going to need a little bit of pink, which we don't have. So we'll see how we go, if maybe my violet pencil with some white might do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually do this with the Crayolas. So let's start by looking at the chart that we've done and finding the closest match to our colors on here, and then we'll see if we need to add anything else. So this lilac color I can see is very similar to our violet mixed with a little bit of pink. And if we do that in a bit of a lighter layer, I think that will work. So let's give that a go. I actually think we matched that pretty closely. Now let's try it with the Prismacolors. So our Prismacolor chart, we are a little bit more restricted, but I'm going to try taking the violet, and maybe let's just try that and we'll see how close we get. And maybe we might need to add a touch of red. I'm just worried that might get too dark. So let's just see. It is quite difficult without this pink. Having to do this red very lightly, because it very quickly, as you can see on this hedge here, it very quickly overpowers the purple. Okay, so for this first color, I think both colors actually did pretty well. By adding that tiny bit of red in with the violet and the white, we've actually come very, very close to our lilac, even though there is no pink in the range. And while the Crayolas is slightly closer color, like I said, there's a bit more texture. It's a bit harder to blend the colors together, so it's not quite as good, but both pretty close. Now I'm hoping the royal purple should be an easier color to match. So let's start again with our Crayola. I think our best bet is pretty much to go straight for a violet. I do feel like we need to darken it a little bit though, so maybe we will try adding a little bit of red to see if we can darken that violet without making it go too muddy gray. So with our Prismacolors, I actually feel like our violet and our crimson red comes pretty close. So I'm going to try that, but I think I will go a little bit lighter on the red. And that's actually the same colors that we've used in the Crayola, so that makes sense that that should work. Let's see how it goes. All right, so far so good. I think both of our colors have come a pretty good match so far. The top one, the red, is still showing through a little bit, again, because the cheaper pencils don't quite blend as well, but it's still very, very close. Now our blue-gray here is actually a pretty bold blue, so I feel like it should be fairly easy to make this. I'm thinking with the blue with a little bit of a sky blue mixed in. We might even see as we go if we need to bring in a complementary color just to add a little bit more gray to it. So we'll see how we go. This blue color is actually pretty close on its own. I'd probably just use this if I was trying to match this color palette, just like that. I'm tempted to add a little bit of gray, but the more colors we add, the more chance we have of, I guess, messing up that texture. So I think I'm just gonna stick with that. I did add a tiny bit of sky blue, but hardly. I think it's actually fine as is. So whereas in the Prismacolors, our two options, we've got our true blue and our violet blue that are both quite different. So by mixing them together, we're going to get that in-between blue that we are looking for. Now it's really interesting here to see the difference between true blue as the dominant color and violet blue as the mixing color, compared to violet blue as the mixing color and true blue is a dominant color. So that both of those examples use the same two colors, and yet the dominant color has made quite a big difference to the final appearance. So far we've been able to do these colors with just two. I'm going to try three for the teal with the Crayolas, because teal is obviously halfway between green and blue. But when I mix the green with the sky blue, it's a bit light, but the green with the blue is a little bit dark. And the same if we mix them the other way. So I'm going to try and mix all three to see if we can get something in between. So the key with this color, because I'm mixing three and I am doing a bit of an experiment, is I'm just doing very light layers of each color so that I can just keep reassessing as I go. So as I'm looking at it, I'm going, okay, look, it's probably getting a bit too blue, so I add a bit more green. It needs to be darker, so I add a bit more of the dark blue. And you just keep revisiting it. And as long as you're going in light layers, you should be able to keep adjusting that color. So from our Prismacolors, I'm going to try grass green and true blue and see if that can get us close. We'll decide once we start if we need to add a third color. So as I've done this, I think because my green was a bit blunt, like I said, keep your pencils sharp, I've ended up with a bit too much green, so I've had to go a bit heavier back with the blue. Luckily the Prismacolors, because they blend so well, does allow you to do that. You can actually come back quite heavy and it will still put more pencil down. So the end result, I did end up adding a little bit of that violet blue as well, and I think that's pretty close. So this last color I'm a little bit stuck on because it's almost a black, but it's not. It's actually a dark teal. So I don't really want to use black because I think that's going to be too heavy. Ideally, I want to take my teal and darken it. That kind of doesn't really fit in either of these sets in any of the color mixes I've got. So we can do a bit of an experiment here, and I think I'm going to try using these same colors that I've already used, and then I'm going to bring in a color from the other side of the color wheel to try and darken it and bring it more towards the black like I showed you in that earlier example. So there you have it. With both the cheap set of Crayolas and the expensive set of Prismacolors, we have been able to recreate this entire color palette using just our 12 colors. All in all, this has been a very fun experiment. Even if you do own a big set of Prismacolors, it's worth giving this activity a go because it helps you to get your head around how colors work, what colors mix together, and it will help you in creating nice gradients or creating shading, or maybe stretching your skills a little bit as an artist. So I challenge you to give this a go. And if you are looking for a set of pencils, maybe your first set, I do recommend investing in the better quality pencils. Whether that is a 12 set like what we've used today, or whether you stretch maybe to a 20 or 30 set to try and include some of those other important colors, I definitely think it is worth the investment to get the pencils that blend better. It makes coloring so much more enjoyable. The end results are amazing, and it just improves the whole experience in my opinion. So I definitely recommend stretching your budget a bit if you can, but if you're just getting started or looking for some good pencils for your kids, or if you just can't quite stretch the budget yet, there is absolutely nothing wrong with a good set of Crayolas to get you started. Now, if you're wanting to give this a go, I have included this color mixing chart as a free printable download on my website. I've included the link below in the description to download this and to download the other mixing chart I showed you. You can also find there links to buy the pencils that I've talked about, to find a colored version of this chart that you can see, to see the reference that I've used, and you can grab yourself a copy of the color catalog if that interests you. As I finish up, please remember to like this video if you found it helpful, and press subscribe and turn on notifications because I have more videos like this coming and I don't want you to miss out. Please tell me below if you found this helpful. Tell me what kind of pencils you own or what kind of pencils you'll be buying after this video. And then check out this next video that I have for you on color theory to talk you more through the color wheel and complementary colors and those things that we mentioned today. Bye.